Wow. Thank you all. That was amazing. It's so inspiring to see so much enthusiasm and so many people here. So thank you all for coming. I know some of you came a long distance, some of you came a short distance, but we are grateful to have you all. My name is Janet Burns-Smith, and I'm one of the members of the Knox County Indivisible leadership team. Knox County Indivisible is the local presence of a grassroots progressive organization that is opposing and resisting the Trump administration and its policies. The rest of the leadership team is here too. I think maybe our founder, Meg Gallup-Holt, might be out chasing people around with a pinwheel in the parking lot. I hope not. Is she still here? Oh, there's Meg. Okay. And yes. And would the rest of the leadership team please stand up, raise your hand, whatever. So just a few housekeeping items before we get started. We are videoing this session, and afterwards we will deliver the link to the video to Balderson's office. We are also streaming live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube people! And I have a bunch of important thank yous I have to make. First of all, to all the volunteers who helped us. We had to move the chairs and put out all the materials and check you in and clean up afterwards. We would not have been able to do this without your help, I can guarantee you that. I also want to thank Habitat for Humanity for giving us this space. And the Knox County Democratic Party for lending us some of the chairs that you're all sitting in. Last but not least at all, I want to thank our three speakers. We have Ken Harbaugh, Jerrad Christian, and Mason Blankenship. And we have our empty chair.
Where's Troy?
We have a full program planned, so, and including, hopefully at the last half hour we'll have time for anyone who has questions to ask them. So I ask that you please hold your questions until then, so we can get through the rest of things. Please note there are bathrooms back through the door over here. And the fire exits are also back there as well as the front door, if we have an emergency, which I certainly hope we don't. Also, we have a couple of guests who are set up at tables on the side. First of all, we have Dale Miller. Stand up. Dale is running for City Council at large in Mount Vernon. So if you live in Mount Vernon in any of the 4 wards, he will be on your ballot. So when the event is over, you might want to spend some time getting to know him and find out what he's all about. We also have Debbie Fierst. She is the founder of the Little Pantry of Mount Vernon. Little Pantry was in operation 2020 to 2023, then closed for a few years. But Debbie, thankfully, is opening it up again, basically in response to all the cuts that are happening from the Trump administration and affecting food scarcity. So she's going to help solve that problem. Just a little bit more about a Little Pantry. It's a physical pantry on Sycar Road, and that Debbie and her family stock with food and essential supplies for individuals who need them. The difference between the Little Pantry and all the other food banks around are that the little pantry is open 24 hours a day. It is completely self-service, and you don't have to fill any paperwork out to get the food. So the goal is to provide food to those who need it, and to make it completely accessible, and to preserve the people's dignity. Knox County Indivisible is amazingly proud to be sponsoring the little pantry in terms of fundraising. So I request that you all go and visit with her. She's got some amazing stories, and maybe you can open up your wallet a little bit. My friend, Lori Fink, and I are going to run this town hall, and we hope you have fun, learn something new about our congressman, our district, and our many concerns, and I hope we have a little bit of good-natured teasing of our congressman who couldn't come, or wouldn't come. A town hall builds community. It's an opportunity to express our thoughts out loud, together, and in a large group. Since the person we want to communicate with isn't here, we're going to bring the town hall to him. As I mentioned, we're streaming live on YouTube, and we are videoing the whole session, which we will post on YouTube afterwards and give the link to Balderson and his office. We have several other ways for you to participate. The pink slips and postcards that were on your chair, please fill them out. If you need another postcard, you have more than one thing to say. There are plenty more over there, and there's actually a few empty chairs over here that have postcards on them. We're going to hand deliver them to Balderson's office early next week. Some attendees submitted questions in advance, and that's what we're going to be answering, both Balderson's point of view as we've been able to research it, and we'll get some additional responses from our speakers. We're using a presentation technology called Mentimeter, which I hope you're all set up with. If you're not, there are some instructions posted around the room. Maybe you can help your neighbor get set up. I didn't change the slide. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to leave this slide up for just a few minutes in case anybody needs the instructions still. A little background into how this town hall came about. Back in May, I realized, in August, there will be a congressional recess. Let's see if Balderson's going to have a town hall in Mount Vernon. So I called his office, and I talked to Jonathan, who probably a lot of you know from phone calls there. And Jonathan said, I'll check, and call me again in a week if I don't get back to you. Well, he didn't get back to me, so I called him again in a week, and then I still didn't get a response. So finally, I submitted a request on his website, and sort of an official request, and I got this response, which is essentially no. Remember, you've got thumbs down on your phone to make sure that Troy knows how you feel about this. This is really a sad commentary on our congressman. Like, we are constituents. Okay, so this is Troy Balderson. Remember the thumbs down. We tried, believe me, we tried. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on him just so we know who he is, because we never met him, so we don't really know. He was born and raised in Muskingum County. Did I say that right? In 2008, he was elected as a state representative. And in 2010, at the beginning of his political career, he proposed legislation to require random drug testing of Medicaid recipients. From 2011 to 2018, Balderson was a member of the Ohio Senate. In August 2018, he was elected congressman for Ohio 12. Balderson won that special election by only 0.8% of the vote. Nonetheless, he was reelected in November 2018, in 2022, 2024, and I missed 2020. He was reelected a number of times. He is a member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which oversees American energy, healthcare, and telecommunications policies. So it's a pretty important committee. This is Ohio District 12. And now get your phones ready because we're going to start really participating. Ohio 12 includes all or part of 12 counties in Ohio: Licking, Fairfield, Knox, Muskingum, Coshocton, Guernsey, Morgan, Perry, and Athens counties, all in their completeness. And then also portions of Delaware, Holmes, and Tuscarawas County. So what I want to do is ask you all to enter, what county are you from? And let's see how this builds. And I hope the people on YouTube, the streaming, are also entering, participating in the Mentimeter. That is awesome. Now, Knox, of course, is biggest because we're here, but I'm amazed at the breadth of people participating, where you came from. So thank you for those who came here, and thank you to anybody who's on YouTube. Next, we're going to have a short quiz. The point is not to worry about getting the correct answer on everything. The point is really to get us on the same page of some of the awful things that are happening to the people in our district, and to understand that. It bears noting that everything we are presenting today is very well documented. There are a few copies of sources at the front desk, and I think hanging on the wall. And we will email a copy of the sources to everyone who registered, and we have your email address. Quick additional note, the bill that we're going to be talking about a lot today is formally called the One Big Beautiful Bill. That's OBBB for short, or just BBB. We may also at times call it the Big Ugly Bill. They're all the same thing: big, bad, and ugly, despite the name that was given to it by President Trump. So our first question: what percentage of households in Ohio 12 relies on Medicaid? And the choices, well, you should be able to read it on your phone. It's 10%, 18%, or 23%. You guys are pretty smart. Yes, according to Policy Matters Ohio, 23% of the people in Ohio 12 rely on Medicaid for their health care. Also important to note is approximately 40% of those people are under the age of 19. Okay, second question. What percentage of households in Ohio 12 receive SNAP benefits? So SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it's basically what used to be called food stamps. Well, we think it's worse than it is. It's actually, the answer is 12%. According to the Center for Community Solutions, 12.2% of households in Ohio District 12 receive SNAP benefits. 76% of those families have at least one working adult, which is kind of important since they're worrying about working. And 10% of those adults are age 60 or older. Critical to know, the sneaky Republicans who crafted the big ugly bill delayed some of the most harmful aspects that affect Medicaid and SNAP until after the 2026 midterms. They think that if the pain is delayed, they can win again. But we're going to prove them wrong, right? Also important to note is Affordable Care Act enrollees will see their premiums rise this fall when they sign up for coverage for 2026. Please do not let Congressman Balderson and the Republicans gaslight you. The facts are, the big ugly bill provides a massive tax cut for very rich people, and that tax cut is paid for by ripping away health care and food from our most vulnerable neighbors. The bill also adds $3.4 trillion to the government deficit over the next 10 years. While we're on the subject of SNAP, I again have to point out Debbie Fierst and the Little Pantry, because they're going to be a really important resource for our community. And again, Knox County Indivisible is proud to be part of that story. Okay, next question. U.S. News and World Report ranks the 50 states according to a number of criteria, including economic opportunity, public health, and education. Out of 50, where do you think Ohio ranks? On your phone. Okay, you're right. The majority or the plurality is correct. It's 38. Can you believe that? Many factors and people probably contributed to Ohio's low rankings, but our congressional representatives certainly deserve some of the credit. In Knox County, we've had a Republican congressman for the last 14 consecutive years.
Time to go!
Okay, next question. Will the geographical configuration of our congressional district remain today, as it exists today, for the 2026 election? Okay, well, the reality is probably somewhere between no, definitely not, and we don't know for sure. Ohio is slated for congressional redistricting this year. If you recall, in 2022, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled that congressional maps created by the Republican-dominated legislature were unconstitutional. Ohio was allowed to use those maps for the 22 and 2024 elections, but redistricting is mandated prior to 2026. Unfortunately, this sounds like, well, we're going to redistrict and we're going to redistrict and make it more fair, but the reality is that we have to be really worried about the Republicans making it even less fair. This all probably won't be resolved for the next few months, but now is the time to start getting informed and to track this issue. There will be times when we can participate in public testimony, writing letters, and trying to make people know our concerns about our communities and how the districting affects them. A really great resource is Fair Districts Ohio. that is listed on our sources sheet, but it's really an easy Google, Fair Districts, Ohio. They will tell you everything that's going on. Okay, this is our last question. When will we elect a new congressperson? And oh, there's only one answer. We have to do it in 2026. Okay, so in the next segment of our town hall, Lori will review some of the questions that we received prior to this event, and you'll begin to hear from our speakers. Thank you.
Are you having a good time? Yeah, let's go. So now we get to the meat of the town hall, which is a question and answer period. Now, unfortunately, a congressman is nowhere to be seen to answer these questions, so we had to get a little bit clever. We decided to ask all the people who registered before August 16th to send us a question they would like to ask Troy Balderson. I always want to call him Tony, I don't know why. But we received a number of questions and we picked 4 of them. At first we thought, wouldn't it be cute if we asked ChatGPT to write Troy Balderson's answers? However, I'm a great hater of AI and didn't want to do the fact-checking because AI is always inaccurate, includes disinformation and misinformation, and so we did our research. We went to Balderson's public statements, we combed his newsletters, his Facebook page, his congressional web pages, and other kinds of public things that he's public statements that he's made to answer these 4 questions. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to call each of the questioners one by one to the microphone, which is being held by lovely Erin Salva over here. They will ask their question. I will then give our researched and fact-checked verbatim Troy Balderson answer. We're just going to change his name. Troy Balderson answer. Then we're going to invite our 2 speakers, Ken Harbaugh and Jerrad Christian, who will come to the mic and give their answers to those questions. I will alternate the order. But before we start that, let me give a little background on our 2 speakers. Ken Harbaugh was the Democratic Party nominee for the U.S. House of Representatives in Ohio's 7th Congressional District. At that time, Knox County was part of that district. You can see why redistricting is important here. Ken has a Bachelor of Science from Duke University and a law degree from Yale Law School, and I forgot to ask him how to pronounce the network.
Oh, Midas Touch Network.
It is Midas Touch, okay. He's currently the president of Midas Touch Studios and the producer of the #1 Apple TV documentary, Against All Enemies. He's a former Navy pilot and mission commander. He is a former U.S. Navy pilot and mission commander who helped build and lead several nationally recognized veterans organizations, including Team Rubicon, a nonprofit that deploys military veterans worldwide as emergency first responders. He has reported from the front lines of the war in Ukraine for Valor Media and the Midas Touch networks. He currently hosts the Ken Harbaugh Show on the Midas Touch network. Jerrad Christian was a Democratic Party nominee in 2024 for the U.S. House of Representatives, this time in Ohio Congressional District 12, which Knox County was then part of. Jerrad was born in Gloucester, Ohio. He grew up in poverty in the Appalachian region of Ohio. After high school, Jerrad joined the U.S. Navy, where he served as a flight deck fueler on an aircraft carrier and then as a meteorologist and oceanographer. After leaving the Navy, Jerrad used his GI Bill funds to attend Ohio University, though he could not afford to continue, a problem common to students, financially strapped students. Eventually, he trained as a software engineer. Okay, let's get on to our question. Question number 1 comes from Michelle Geyer. Michelle? You want to hear your voice?
Test. If I had it my way, I Mr. Balderson. I don't call him a representative because I don't feel like he represents us. So I'm just going to call him Mr. Balderson.
Yes.
Your yes vote on Trump's big, beautiful bill. It added $4 trillion to the national debt, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts to billionaires and corporations, cuts SNAP benefits, closes rural hospitals, and contains Medicaid cuts. Many of the provisions with the heaviest impact on everyday people are set to take effect after voters have cast their ballots in the midterms in November 2026. I don't think this is a coincidence. It is a calculated choice to delay visible harm to the until the political coast is clear.
Yep.
The timing delay is an obvious ploy to catch voters when they have the least leverage after the elections. If this bill is so beautiful, why are you waiting to implement it? Are you afraid of losing an election or something?
And Troy Balderson's answer is, I proudly voted to pass the one big, beautiful bill which delivers on President Trump's agenda to put America first, families first, and set our nation on a path to prosperity. If you boo me, by the way, I won't take it personally. The legislation protects Ohioans from the largest tax hike in U.S. history, safeguards Medicare for the most vulnerable in our communities, secures our borders with historic investments, and unleashes the full potential of American energy. The one big, beautiful bill departs from the failed policy roadmap followed over the past decades that has left rural America behind. It contains unprecedented levels of federal assistance to rural and other vulnerable hospitals. The newly created the newly created Rural Health Transformation Program will deliver an investment of $50 billion over 5 years to transparently and efficiently transform rural health access. By eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse in the broader Medicaid program, the one big, beautiful bill freed up resources for a transparent and direct, once-in-a-generation investment in rural care. House Republicans are united in our commitment to cutting government waste, ensuring the nation's future, and ensuring that Americans keep more of their hard-earned paychecks. Thank you. And now I'll call on Ken Harbaugh to deliver a response to that.
Don't take it personally, Lori. I see so many familiar faces here. It's good to be back. I mean, think about how crazy that gerrymander was in 20. I even see a Ken Harbaugh shirt that has been worn a lot for many years. Thank you all thanks for inviting me down, Janet and Lori, and thanks for having me. Look, I'm not gonna pick apart Mr. Balderson's, not Representative Balderson's. I'm not going to pick apart that answer because all you need to know is that all they have left is lies. And we know that because they are doing everything they can to avoid the accountability for those lies. Not just pushing off the damage of this so-called big, beautiful bill until after the next election, but literally cheating in places like Texas, where the president ordered the state legislature there to deliver 5 more congressional seats because they are terrified of losing the House of Representatives in 2026, per that last question, and finally being held accountable. They are terrified of us. Let me talk for a minute about the kind of cowardice that has pervaded one of our major political parties. And you might think I'm talking about the cowardice of someone who is terrified of Janet and Lori, right? Too afraid to sit next to them in front of a room like this. That's not the fear that has really pervaded the Republican Party. It is fear of Donald Trump himself. The fact that he can pick up the phone, or even worse, call out his vigilantes, that fear is palpable. And I still stay in touch with some of the many of the members of Congress. In fact, all of the ones who ran in 2018 as veterans in that incredible class, you know, Mikey Sherrill and Jason Crow and Alyssa Slotkin and the others. And the fear on the other side of the aisle is visceral. They are literally afraid for their lives from the extremists in their party. That's the point we have reached as a country. And I sometimes get asked on the calls I'm on every week, sometimes guests on the Midas Touch Network ask as well, is what are the red lines? What should we be looking for to finally say enough is enough and take to the streets? Well, I don't know how many in here I speak for in saying this, but for my part, the red line was crossed a long time ago. A long time ago. And so the question is no longer when will they cross the red line, it's what will our response be? I think we are reaching the point, and I say this metaphorically, but it might become true someday soon, where we will be hiding immigrants in our attics. Think about what that evokes. That is how far we have gone. I came back from LA, where I was meeting with immigration rights activists out there. You know what? I think there's an immigration question coming up, right? We'll address that later. I'll end with this because I want to hand it over to Jerrad. The other reason I know that they are lying is because I'm a veteran. And the one thing that was supposed to be the other third rail, you didn't touch it. You know, we had Medicare, we got Social Security, we got Medicaid. It was veterans benefits. Put them on speaker because they need to hear this. Answer that phone. Put them on speaker. They told us veterans benefits were sacrosanct. And then they went after the VA. And they cut the suicide hotline for my fellow vets. And they said they were going to slash 86,000 jobs. This is the point of optimism I want to leave you with before I hand over the mic. They said they would cut 86,000 jobs. We rose up, we marched on Washington on D-Day, June 6th of this year, and we said, don't cut 86,000 jobs because as many problems as the VA might have, too many nurses has never been one of the VA's problems, right? Too much health care has never been our problem. And they walked it back. They walked it back. Because, look, we all know the phrase, courage is contagious, right? And we feel that in rooms like this. The other thing you have to remind yourself when looking at empty chairs like this is that cowardice is contagious as well. And they are afraid when we link arms and when we speak with one voice. And I am so encouraged by afternoons like this and by rooms like this one. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna stand over here so that thing's not shining in my face the whole time. Hi, I'm Jerrad Christian, and if you don't know me, I also recognize a lot of faces in here, and I'm glad to see so many people coming together at a time when it's definitively necessary. I refuse to call it its name because I think it's really stupid. Thank you. It's just so awkward that they would name it. The budget bill is what we'll call it. We can go over all of the bullshit in there, and we can talk about how they're bragging about funding $50 billion toward the hospitals in rural areas, but they're cutting it by $137 billion. Thank you. That doesn't math. We can talk about all of these things, right? We know, like Ken said, we've all seen the bill. We know what's in there. If you haven't read it, it's really long. But I think that it's worth noting that the people in this room, I'm assuming largely Democrats, hopefully lots of independents, and hopefully some Republicans, because we need to talk. We need to talk about what it means to have values. Not just conservative values, not just liberal values, but human values. The ones that we seem to be ignoring. Cutting Medicaid, cutting SNAP benefits. I grew up really poor. If it wasn't for food stamps, I wouldn't have had food. If it wasn't for breakfast and lunch at school, I wouldn't have had food. If it wasn't for the kindness and goodness of the people in my community, some nights we wouldn't have had a place to sleep. Okay? And that is what it means to belong to a society. Because if we don't take care of the least of these, what the hell are we even doing? He's right that they're scared. But there are people in this crowd that are also scared. There are people out in the street that are scared, who refuse to speak up, who don't know what to say, don't know where to go, don't know that there's an open door that they could walk through into a group like this that will help them build and maintain the courage that they need to make positive effects on their society, on the world around them. So as a group of people, if we want to defeat things like the budget bill, we have to talk to them about it's not a conservative value to stuff a bunch of pork into a single bill, right? That's not what I understand conservatism to be. It's not conservative to cherry pick bits and pieces of the founding document of our nation, the Constitution, to suit whatever need you want to do whatever you do. We have habeas corpus, and it doesn't mean the president can just deport whoever he wants, Christy Nome. We have the right to due process, and that is all persons within this nation, whether you like it or not. We all know that we have systems that are broken. We all know that. Everyone in this room, everyone outside this room knows that this country doesn't run perfectly, that we do not always meet the set of ideals that we have set for ourselves. But that does not mean that we burn our house down because we found a spider in the kitchen, right? So in order to defeat these things, to defeat this gerrymandering, I don't know if you guys know this, but when one of these guys terms out, because we do have term limits in Ohio, when one of these guys terms out, they just move to their buddy's seat and their buddy moves to theirs. It's happening right now. Beth Lear's trying to get the Senate seat from Brenner, who's termed out. Who knows where he's going to go? Maybe auditor. No, wait, that's Frank. He termed out of Secretary of State. Now he's running for auditor. I don't think that's what we meant by term limits, is it? How we defeat it is that we take the courage that is contagious from the people around us and we give it to other people. It is scary to know that our hospitals can fail, that you have to drive an hour and a half to have a baby, that you can't afford your health insurance, that if your kid gets sick, you might end up homeless. That shit's scary. I don't want that. I care about my community. I care about you, my family, my people. We defeat it by giving other people courage to stand up and to say enough. Not with just gerrymandering, but people who don't represent us or our values. This bill was bullshit. Everybody in here knows it. I think that if anybody on the conservative side were to stand up and be like, it wasn't, I would love to hear why. Because I would love to hear Troy defend it. I would love to. But I was on the campaign trail for a year and a half. I met that man twice, and both times was at a parade. One time he refused to get a picture with me. He actually got pissed and ran off. Yeah. Troy? So I feel like I'm dragging this out, but I just want to echo what he said about sharing your courage. Go out and meet people where they're at. We can't judge people and treat them poorly and build a community, right? If you follow me on social media, you see that sometimes I'm not very nice, but I am always nice to the people. I will always and often punch up, because that's what we do in America. We don't tolerate that. I will always be good to people. I will never be good to power.
I have to read from the paper, so I'm going to need that. Is James Hopkins here? James Hopkins? Aaron, would you read the question?
Yep, got it.
Where are you?
Is it up there or you got it?
No,
on the
I've got it here.
Okay. James isn't here? Okay, here's the question. From James Hopkins. You've discussed how important it is for rural communities to gain broadband internet. The big, beautiful bill you voted yes for does not renew or replace funding for the Affordable Connectivity Program, known as ACP, which previously subsidized internet access for more than 23 million low-income households. This means millions could lose broadband access or face much higher bills. In addition, the BBB, Big Bad, beautiful, eliminates internet service from the SNAP Standard Utility Allowance. Do you have any plans to help people in rural areas who cannot afford the internet?
And I just want to reiterate that we are giving, the answers we're giving are Balderson's own words. So he is answering, sort of. Gotta find my answer. Okay. Rural communities make up a significant portion of Ohio 12th Congressional District, and I am working to make sure these communities are not forgotten. Of critical importance is the issue of access to high-speed broadband internet. Without reliable connectivity, rural residents face disadvantages that put them behind their urban and suburban counterparts. E-connectivity benefits rural residents. It enhances healthcare options by providing telemedicine services and additional tools to fight the opioid epidemic. It closes the homework gap by providing rural students with the same ability to research and access educational materials as their urban and suburban counterparts. And it expands rural entrepreneurship by opening up the digital marketplace to small businesses so that they can compete. Jerrad, you want to take this one? Jerrad?
It's a bright light to stand up in front of. So, first, even accessibility doesn't mean affordability. You can run a wire to their house, but can they pay $100, $150 a month? Just to have like basic functioning internet? Likely not. And that's, I don't know if you know, but ISPs are intentionally monopolistic. They made deals with each other a long time ago that they wouldn't step into each other's territories, so the reason that you're stuck with the same ISP in your neighborhood is because they made that deal. And as much as we would love to all stand up here and say that our government's really good at breaking apart monopolies, they're simply not. One of the greatest ideas I think I've heard so far about rural internet is actually municipal ISPs, where you can have them and run them locally. It's a utility at this point in the world. When you meet somebody and if they were to say, I don't have the internet, that would be very confusing for most of us. But the fact is that I think that, by the way, that funding ended, I think like last May. And everybody that had that subsidy lost it. Yeah. I don't know if you know, the government's not really here to help us. It kind of goes back to, if we're not helping people, what are we doing? What is a society? One in, I think, 6 kids in Ohio live in poverty. I think it's 1 in 10 are at least at risk. And I'm going to mention something that broke a lot of people. COVID. During COVID, we learned some really hard lessons. 1, we don't know what we're doing. 2, when kids had to go to school using the internet, they couldn't. People can't afford computers. People don't have internet. People can't afford internet. And that's a problem we need to solve. And I was actually just talking to Mason earlier before this started, and I think that largely, a lot of the things that I know about ISPs, I'm going to call you over here, I'm going to call you out, John. A lot of the things that I know about ISPs and the way that they function within Ohio is from John Furyk over there. He ran for county commissioner of Muskingum County, and I learned more than I ever imagined I would know about how ISPs and how they're run in counties. The money came from the American Rescue Plan, went to the state gave it to the county did whatever they did, right? In some counties, they built really great internet services. In other counties, they gave it to the ISPs to try to figure out whether or not they could run broadband. And they gave it as bonus money, and they gave it to just figure out if they could. And when they came back and they were like, nope, sorry, but thanks for the money, they couldn't set up an ISP. So like, so much of our problems as a nation, and I'm just gonna be blunt here, so many of our problems as a nation is not corruption, it is ineptitude. We are not sending our best and brightest to these offices. One of the things that I've said many times, you've probably heard it before, is if you want to run for office, you should. And if the blocker is you don't feel qualified, go talk to some of the people in the offices. You'll feel a lot better about yourself.
It astonishes me that we had virtually this same conversation, this same debate 8 years ago, as the rest of the world is passing us by. I just came back from Ukraine. I'm headed back in a few weeks. They have faster broadband near the front in Ukraine in bombed out villages than they have in parts of this county and this district. I remember 8 years ago talking to families who said their kids had to do homework at McDonald's because that was the only facility that had fast enough Wi-Fi to handle the load. And look, it begs the question, I mean, we're always asking why, right? But then if you get down to the motives and the incentives, it makes you wonder, and I'm not conspiratorial by nature, but it makes you wonder if the Republican Party really doesn't want that educated of an electorate. I am sure, and this probably happens, you could answer this, John could probably answer it. I'm sure if there was a debate over money for broadband access for corporations or businesses, it would flow easily, right? And it probably does. But when it comes to broadband access for kids, for families, for rural communities, it's not just deprioritized. I think it might be throttled. Because what happens when voters begin to realize that the people they elect aren't working for them? The most dangerous thing to an autocracy is an educated, informed public. And that means it's incumbent upon us, because I don't think the ISPs are going to solve the problem. I sure as hell know that the legacy media organizations aren't going to solve the problem. I mean, CBS now has a content monitor to make sure that what it is broadcasting is not too unfriendly to the president, to the commander-in-chief. It is going to be up to us talking to our neighbors. It is going to be up to independent news organizations. This is not a plug, but Midas Touch News is one example of that. There are plenty of options out there where you can get the truth without having to rely on the corporatized media that now has the thumb of government on it. Every decision they make, they're thinking about whether the next merger will be blocked by the FCC. We have to find other ways of getting the truth out, because I am rapidly coming to the conclusion that the main lever the other side has, the main thing they are counting on, is an uninformed, ignorant public. It's why they made it into power in the first place, and it's their only hope for holding on to power.
Stu Peckham.
Okay, my question is, in 175 years of record keeping by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the 10 hottest years on record have all been in the last decade. How do you balance goals of energy independence and lower costs while protecting the planet and the future for our descendants?
And Troy Balderson says, we will either pursue energy dominance and restore U.S. leadership on the world stage, or we will continue to undermine our own energy. We will continue to undermine our own energy and security and empower our adversaries. It's that simple. The Biden administration's energy rules sought to force many of our most dependable power plants, coal and natural gas, into early retirements. That might sound like a far-off issue, but the consequences will be devastating for Ohio families right now. Higher prices, blackouts, a grid that simply can't keep up, I support a diverse polio's coming, portfolio of energy sources to meet this country's power generation needs. But when an unrealistic green policies jeopardize our ability to keep the lights on, it's time to wake up.
I just heard balderdash. I think we coined that. I think we trademarked that. That's good. Representative Balderdash, Mr. Balderdash. Look, this one's easy, and it's amazing their ability to not answer the question, right? Just to throw words together that have nothing to do with the issue at hand. One of the most critical issues in the world right now, and I mean, this is the thing our kids and grandkids are going to be dealing with. I mean, a lot of the other stuff is, what's the medical term? As acute as it is, as critical as it is in the moment, climate change is going to destroy the world, right? And to have our so-called representatives not even answer the question, not even address it, is, I mean, it betrays that willful ignorance. And that's the other hallmark of the electeds in one party these days. It's almost a badge of pride to ignore science, to ignore facts. And this happens in every domain of government now. If you look at the NIH and the CDC, it's not just choosing to ignore science, choosing to ignore reality, it's thumbing your nose at it. And when you have, what was the stat? 10 of the hottest days on record? Years just happened consecutively. I think that might actually be an opportunity for the truth tellers. And let me maybe frame it in more kitchen table issues. When the lies being spewed are about esoteric or arguable points, and I hate even bringing up this example, but the Trump regime got so much mileage out of the so-called stolen election, right? Because it caused a debate. There really is no debate here. When it comes to something like the price of eggs or the price of gas, when you have one side, one party, and its leader saying from a presidential podium, gas is as cheap as it's ever been, all it takes is driving down the street, right? And on this issue, all it takes is going outside. All it takes is to be a farmer and looking at what has happened to your fields, to the invasive species, to the fact that insects that used to stop at a certain latitude are now coming down south. I mean, that is impossible to ignore. That's just a fact. And I think we need to seize upon those facts to communicate to our friends and our family. And I know where I'm standing right now. I know there are a lot of Republicans around here. And let me just add one more thing, which is in some ways the elephant in the room. It is so darn tempting to say, I told you so, right? And I succumb to this all the time because none of what is happening now should be a surprise. It was telegraphed in Project 2025. It was telegraphed in the first Trump administration, from the Medicaid cuts to the assaults on the VA to the propping up of gas and coal and oil companies. We knew that was coming, and it is really tempting to look at our neighbors, in my case, some of my family members, and say, you deserve what's coming. I try to reject that, and I hope we can all reject that as well, because now is a moment for grace on issues like this as people begin to wake up to the realities of things like losing rural hospitals, of things like the 10 hottest years on record. Let's show a little grace. Let's resist the temptation to say, I told you so, and let's win in 2026.
So as was mentioned in my introduction, I was a meteorologist and oceanographer in the military. Climate change keeps me up at night. I don't read articles about it. I don't look how it's going. I don't check on it because I already know. And I am not looking to feel the way that makes me feel. I will say that I understand the science. I understand the science more than almost anyone that I've ever met. because I did it for a living. And I want to touch back on something because it is involved a little. We're talking about internet service. But the thing that we didn't mention that I think is probably vastly more important is access to other utility types. For instance, clean water. And as we use these pollutants, we're acidifying our oceans, we are pouring poisons into our local lakes and rivers, and we're making it so that the thing that keeps us alive is no longer usable. The planet, our water, our air, and unfortunately it's easy to ignore if you just go inside your AC, because the atmosphere is a big invisible garbage dump. Everything that goes up there, you can't see it. You can't see carbon dioxide, you can't see methane. It's just floating around up there, so it's easy to ignore, right? If it looked like an actual garbage dump, you'd be like, oh crap. Climate change is going to be the defining thing of our lifetimes. There is no doubt in my mind. We have a lot of work to do. We do have to transition. We can't just shut off every natural gas power plant in the country and be sorry about your luck until we can get all this solar set up. There will be a time of transition, but we need to do it now. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not next year. We have to do it now. And we have massive advancements in battery technology, thanks largely to EVs, that we can start using on our grid. We can start using it to make sure that we maintain power levels throughout the night, so you don't have to worry about the sun going down and losing your power. If we keep a natural gas power plant online, just to make sure that if something happens, it doesn't go out, that's fine, right? We have to make a change. And we have to bring back subsidies for solar energy, and we need to get rid of it for big gas and oil. Because those guys, they profit trillions of dollars a year, literally trillions of dollars a year globally, and we give them trillions from this country. Like, we're just like, here you go, thanks. It is insane. But it's easy to be like, well, we shouldn't fund solar because there's some sort of big solar conspiracy, but then forget that the richest people in the entire world are natural gas and oil people. Who's more likely to have a conspiracy? Some guy who's like, we should probably not all burn to death, or the people who are like, buy my oil. It's obvious, right? The conspiracy is that they've known about climate change since, the 70s? And we have evidence that it was intentionally covered up. We know. But I hear people all the time argue with me online, well, how do we know that there wasn't a worse hurricane 10,000 years ago? Well, you know what? Maybe I don't know that. But what I do have is evidence of concentrations of CO2 and methane that's trapped in ice layers in the Arctic, which, by the way, are melting. It's some scary stuff. We have a lot of work to do, and if we stick our heads in the sand for too long, it's going to be too late. I don't want the last thing that I do in my life while I'm laying there just before I close my eyes to be thinking I didn't do enough to make a better world for my son.
Thank you.
And I ran for office personally for this very reason. But I'll just tell you a quick story of why I ran for office in case you don't know. After I got out of the military, I just kind of wandered around and did whatever jobs came my way, as many veterans do. It's sort of hard to transition sometimes. Eventually, I found out I was going to be a father, so I became a janitor in a factory. And I was a janitor in a factory for years, and it was not very fulfilling. So I used the internet to figure out how to be a software engineer, and then I became that. And my life should have improved, right? I started making better money. My job was a little more fulfilling, I guess. But I was waking up every morning. First thing I'd do, I'd reach my hand over, I would pick up my phone off my nightstand, and I would read the news. And I would get angry, and I would get sad, and I would get scared about the future for my son. Every single day. And I did it for years. And I was in a really dark place. And it was largely due to climate. One day, October 3rd of 2023, I woke up, I picked up my phone like I always do, I read the news, and instead of just rolling over to Jessica and being like, well, here's the misery I just read, I said, I'm running for Congress. And I'm sure it was a very confusing moment for her, because it was for me, but she said okay. And then I just started doing it. And no one in this room had any idea who I was. Nobody at any of the party functions had any idea who I was. I never went to the meetings. I used to go to Republican meetings. And don't worry, I'm not a plant. And I found the meetings so much more welcoming. The people care about their society. And I'm not saying that Republicans don't, because they do. I don't even know how to describe the difference. And it's so weird, the irony to me, I'm sorry, I'm going to drone for a second here. The irony of us being called sheep is mind-boggling. Yeah, I've never, you know what, if a Democratic president told me to do something and I didn't want to do it, I'd be like, no. It's not, primary me, I don't care. Because I want to do what's right? I want to be right, not just feel righteous. And I think that that's probably the biggest difference. I want us to build a better world together. And we do it through meetings like this. Joining together, coming together, hopefully, like I said, some independents and some Republican-leaning people in here. I want you to be here. I want to talk. I want to listen. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. It means I should listen twice as much, right? I have my doubts that Troy's going to watch this video. Sorry, guys. But anyway, climate change sucks and it's scary.
I want to thank Jerrad. That was great. Let's hear it. Yeah. Show me what change looks like.
This is what change looks like.
Show me what change looks like.
This is what change looks like.
Show us what change looks like. This is what change looks like.
Thank you, Aaron. Our next questioner, Stu Peckham. If you want to come to, Stu is over here. Oh, we did that. Okay, Stephen Volz, sorry. I got lost.
Hi, I'm Stephen Volz, resident of Mount Vernon here, and my question is mostly there already. What is the impact of the Trump administration's immigration policies on people in Ohio, especially in rural areas like Knox County? More specifically, are local law enforcement officers expected to arrest anyone who they think might be an illegal immigrant? And is there anything that Ohio residents can do to help international students, teachers, and workers in our communities?
Thank you. Fortunately, or unfortunately, Balderson really hasn't said much publicly about this subject, but I would say his actions probably speak louder than his words, and he did vote yes, proudly, on the big, ugly bill, which provided more funds for continuing ICE raids, deportations, than even before. However, I do want to quote another Republican congressman who actually held a town hall in Omaha, Nebraska, Mike Flood, who had this to say in response to that question. Americans went to the polls in November. They had a choice between a Democratic Party who had an open border, no enforcement, fentanyl, and human trafficking, and a Republican candidate who said close the border, get illegal immigrants out of our country, stop the fentanyl, stop the human trafficking, stop the drugs, stop the crime, stop the violence. That's what Americans voted for. Americans voted for a border that is secure, and I support the president enforcing our immigrant laws.
I spend most of my life heavy sighing. You know, immigration in the United States is broken. It's been broken for a long time. Nobody's denying that. Our immigration system has not been great. It's because, I think it's probably because the United States used to be a very different nation. People would just come and go. And we never really fixed that as well as we should. But at the end of the day, it concerns me. Trust me, I am very concerned with violence and aggression against people who are just trying to live their lives. So please don't mistake the next words that come out of my mouth. I'm far more concerned about the erosion of our constitutional rights and freedoms. Because when someone else doesn't have the right to due process, neither do you. Neither do I. If you say to yourself, well, I'll just show my birth certificate. Well, that's part of due process, isn't it? You have to have a trial where they have to prove that you're an illegal immigrant. And now we're just sending people to random countries they've never been to. Imagine if you were traveling through France and they were just arrested you and sent you to, I don't know, El Salvador. Yeah, why not? It's not the way that America works. Well, it's not the way that America should work, right? I feel very strongly that we do need strong immigration reforms. We have had equipment sitting down at our border for a few years now they didn't give enough funding to actually set up, so it's just been sitting there unused, that would detect fentanyl within semi-trucks, because drugs don't actually come in with people carrying little backpacks while they're dying. They come in through semi-trucks that are crossing the border legally. Most of the drivers are American. Fentanyl, opioids in general, probably all the way up here, so I won't mince words. It decimated my generation. Where I'm from, down in Athens County, most of the people, if you will not meet a person who doesn't know someone or multiple people who died from overdoses. My sister is a recovering addict. I've lost family to opioid addiction. It is not, we don't solve these problems by arresting a bunch of immigrants and sending them to third world countries, by shipping them to dictators and paying them millions of dollars to hold them in their prisons. We solve this through building a society where people want to live, where people want to be a part of it, where they want to grow and develop and not use heroin. Because all of these things, this heroin use, the alcoholism, the suicides, right? It's all deaths of despair. Things that we can avoid by building a better world. And I think that fear of immigration is misrepresentative of what's actually going on. And I'll tell you one thing that I know for sure is I don't want the fears of lesser men to dictate my future. Fear is not the foundation of my life. I don't know what it is, building community, being a good human. I try. But it's certainly not fear. I always seek to understand, to grow, to become a better man than I was yesterday. And though I don't always meet that goal, much like our society, the drive and the desire is still there. We just have to find it and move forward. We have to welcome people into this nation, but we also have to be smart. We have to make good choices. We have to, fund the things that we want to see funded, like, safe crossings at borders. But the point should never be cruelty. It should never be a show. The suffering of another human should never make you feel good. I hope that it changes. I hope that Americans stop seeing people as less than human, because that is a really dangerous road to be on. Thank you for your question.
I'm going to ask the one question that I think the answer to which tells us almost everything we need to know about the goals of the current regime and their mindset. Why are they wearing masks? Why does ICE wear masks? And look, there's an institutional reason. I want to talk about the personal reason. I think deep down, those officers, those agents, know that their children will not talk about what their parents did in this moment. that their grandchildren may forget their names, because this is going to go down as one of the most shameful episodes in American history. When you have agents of the federal government tackling to the ground a father of 3 U.S. Marines as he's mowing a lawn outside IHOP, and their boss, the Secretary of Homeland Security, says they're doing that to keep me safe, they're doing that to keep you safe, I know why they wear masks. Because they are ashamed. They are ashamed. I was in LA, ground zero. It has now spread to DC. It is coming to a town near you, right? There's a reason they are targeting these areas first, though. They are looking for that provocation. And I was with immigration activists and some of the people at the farm in Oxnard that was raided incredibly aggressively, incredibly provocatively. Mothers, fathers who could not get home to their kids. These are hard-working people who came here for the American dream. I think this hopefully provokes a different conversation in this country about what it truly means to be an American. Is it just geographical, or is it a state of mind? Is it a value? Anybody who walks 2,000 miles barefoot for their kids for a better life can be my neighbor anytime. Anytime. And going around this room, listening to these people and what they went through, I picked up on something, and it wasn't hard. The PTSD in this community is real, and I know it when I see it as a veteran. And the fact that our government is now traumatizing people as a matter of policy, not as a side effect, but as a matter of policy, are terrorizing and traumatizing people to make a point to the most extreme elements of their base. And that's who this is for. Even Joe Rogan has come around, right? That's insane. I've never given Joe Rogan a compliment in my life. But they are doing this for the most extreme elements of their base. And they are doing it with our money. And that's the last piece of this that we need to wake up to. ICE now has a budget larger than the United States Marine Corps. What do you think that's for? What do you think that's for? That, say it. That is an internal police force that I guarantee you is going to be deployed in other ways as well. Will we be surprised at all if they set up immigration checkpoints near polling stations in minority areas? Will we be surprised at all if they use ICE to raid, I don't know, someone who recently criticized Donald Trump for the disaster in Alaska and who happened to write a book? John Bolton just had his home raided. I can't believe I'm defending him as well. But I think that's an indication of principle, right? When you stick up even for those with whom you disagree. That is what's coming when you fund a secret police force in the United States of America, staffed by people who don't have the courage, the integrity to even show their faces. The last question. Who do you think is joining ICE these days? You know, in the film that I produced that hit #1 on Apple TV, our big fear was the pardoning of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and reintegrating them into some militia force. They leapfrogged that. They don't even have to do that. They just created a $75 billion internal police force that is going after those same people. And I think the Venn diagrams would terrify you if you saw the people now joining ICE who are being charged with this mission of supposedly keeping America safe. It's all lies.
Okay, we didn't forget veterans. We purposely asked 3 veterans to be part of our town hall. And so help us think about how the actions of the Trump administration are affecting active military and veterans. We've asked Mason Blankenship to say a few words. I first heard this young man speak at the town hall that was held in Lancaster, and I was so impressed by him that I really wanted to make sure he was part of our town hall here. Mason was born and raised in Gahanna, Ohio, where he learned that real service means showing up for your community no matter what. After 5 years in the U.S. Marine Corps infantry, he returned home committed to fighting for something bigger than himself. He earned a master's degree or bachelor's degree in risk management from Franklin University and spent the next 9 years working with nonprofits like the Wounded Warrior Project, Central Ohio American Charities, Resurrecting Lives, Save a Warrior, The Mission Continues, and the American Legion, programs that help families, veterans, and people in crisis. He is currently running for state representative from District 68, which includes central and western portions of Licking County, and I really wanted to give you all a chance to get to know Mason. After he finishes, once he finishes, I'll give Ken and Jerrad a chance to maybe respond shortly, briefly as well, and then we'll start the questions from the audience.
Thank you very much. So I think the easiest way for me to introduce myself is to just let you guys know a little bit about myself. So I am a father, I am a son, I am a husband, I am a brother, and I am a veteran, carrying on a tradition that lasts generations. You see, my grandfather and his 4 brothers, they all served in World War II. My father served in Vietnam. My brothers and I, we all served during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. For generations, my family has answered this nation's call, and I stand before you today because that same call to serve is ringing true yet again. Now, when I came home, my service didn't end. It simply changed uniforms. For the next 9 years, I went on to work with nonprofit organizations like the Wounded Warrior Project and Save a Warrior, standing shoulder to shoulder with veterans and their families through their darkest hours. And I've seen what trauma does up close, the kind that tests your spirit and shakes your faith. And I've stood next to veterans in their darkest moments who would not dare to even give up their hope or courage for this country. And that kind of strength, that kind of courage is the reason that I am standing here today. Now, the military, Marine Corps, gave me grit, kind that refuses to break no matter the pressure. My time in the nonprofit world gave me the conviction that every life has meaning and every voice deserves to be heard. Together, they taught me this: leadership, real leadership, it's not about tucking tail and running when things get hard like Troy Balderson. It's about stepping up, putting your best foot forward, taking accountability, and fighting like hell for your people. Now, you cannot wrap yourself in the American flag and then turn around and cut the very programs that veterans depend upon the most. You cannot stand here and praise service on Veterans Day and then turn around and strip benefits. Because real patriotism, it's not about parades. It's about ensuring that every veteran gets the care that they earned. And anything less dishonors the uniform we wore. But it's not just veterans who are being betrayed. These cuts to Medicaid, it's not cost savings. It's cruelty. It strips therapy away from special needs children, which they need to find their voice. It rips medication out of the hands of grandmothers who can't afford both their pills and groceries. And I tell you right now, we will not stand by as America's most vulnerable is discarded for the sake of politics and profit. And now they turn their sights onto education. An attack on America's youth. If we want a strong Ohio, if we want a stronger America, we must invest in our children's minds, defend their right to learn, and stand up for every school that lifts every child, not just a privileged few. See, I have no use for titles, and I have no patience for empty prestige, nor do I desire the spotlight. I am standing here because the American people's voice has gone ignored for too long, and I refuse to stand by in their attempt to silence us. Yes. But it's not about me. It's about restoring power to where it rightfully belongs, with the people. And this campaign, it's not just a campaign. This is a movement. One built on unity, strength, and a shared vision that Americans standing shoulder to shoulder cannot be defeated, no matter the adversary. And when we rise, we will not rise quietly. For our voices will thunder through the halls of power. And they will tremble, not in fear, but at the strength of a unified people who refuse to be silenced. So stand with us and take back what has always been ours. Our voice, our dignity, and our country. Thank you.
Would any of you like a word or two? Okay.
I'll keep this short. Cutting money from veterans benefits, from Medicaid, from all of these things that we need to survive, education. These, as I said before, are not conservative values. They are not liberal values. They are billionaire values. They are Musk, they are Trump, they are Vivek Ramaswamy values. And we have a choice to make right now that we can sit down. We can go quietly into that good night, but that's not really my style. I refuse to stand by while somebody, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name Heath Robinson. Yeah, Heath Robinson, if you don't know, was why the PACT Act exists. It was to give cancer care to veterans who were exposed to burn pits. Troy voted against it. And the first thing that somebody said, and I get it, when I told somebody that, first thing they said was, well, what else was in that bill? Well, I'll tell you right now, I read it. Nothing. Nothing. And along the lines of immigration and veterans and how that's related, right now, I'm a member of an organization called the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Right now, one of the big movements that they're pushing is to make sure that our Afghanistan veterans who fought next to people, who gave intel, who risked their lives, risked their families, they're being deported back to Afghanistan. Yeah. These are not good people doing these things. This is not, much like what Mason said, I don't care about titles. He once told me I'm the least political candidate, or the least politician-like political candidate he's ever met, which you know what? Badge of honor. I'll wear that. But I don't think of being a veteran as the world owes me anything. It's a thing I did. It was hard. It was interesting. I became a different person. Not because of the trope of boot camp tore me down and made me into a better man, but my exposure to a world that didn't look like mine. That's what made me a different person. Right now, we have a choice to make. And it is, what is the price of your honor? Mine's not personally for sale. So, in the names of veterans and allies and the people of this nation just trying to live their lives, of immigrants, legal and illegal alike, we all deserve to live a life of peace, of safety. And if your perspective is anything but that, you're wrong.
Thank you. Okay, now as I hoped, we actually have 30 minutes for questions. So if you would like to ask a question of the speakers, any of the speakers, not me, if you could line up over here where Aaron has a microphone, and I think we have another microphone over here. And Janet, Chandler?
I'll be over there in a minute.
Okay. We could line up in the middle here, would be a good place.
Test. Okay. So this is in a lot of ways probably this afternoon where I'm kind of preaching to the choir a little bit. And it seems like one of the things that's I think a question that's being asked by all of us kind of regular people is, what can we do? And clearly, one of the things that needs to happen is that we need to be able to reach out more to people, which is difficult to do when we think that they don't necessarily agree with us. So I would like whoever to speak to your experience, your suggestions, your wisdom around how we expand what we're doing and what's going on so that we bring more people in.
You know, that's a question that we have been asking at our Pataskala Concerned Citizens meeting here for quite some time now. How do we communicate with the other side to expand our vision? And I think a way that we do that is with empathy, to be honest. I know a lot of us kind of want to take this hard-nosed approach and say, hey, no, these are the facts. But I think we've learned that that doesn't necessarily get us anywhere. So I think a way that we do it is with empathy, and we say, hey, look, you know, I understand that this is what you may think, but what do you think about this, what this says? You know, bring them into the conversation, listen to what they have to say. Show them that you're listening and you're not just tuning them out, and they will do the same back. That's been my experience. I have family members who are way on that other side, you know. Luckily, we've been able to keep in contact and remain speaking to one another. But what we need to do as a community, right, is we need to show empathy, we need to inform, we need to be encouraging and welcoming. And I think that is really going to be the way, is to show that we know how to be a community again, because that is something that we have lost with the rise of social media and all these remote work jobs, all that stuff. You know, I work remote myself. I can tell you I see my coworkers once every 3 weeks. Not great. But I think that we can, as a community, come together. And I think that we can show them that we are all still Americans. And that we need each other, right? I know it's difficult. I know it's hard, and it's difficult for me as well. The best thing to do is go in there with an open mind, and be welcoming and encouraging, and just understand that, you know, if they aren't coming around yet, well, they're just not ready yet. So, unfortunately, it's not an easy answer.
I want to answer that question a little bit with something very tactical that some of us are doing. Pat Kane, you're here, right? Okay. Pat is organizing a canvassing that we're calling the Listening Canvass around Knox County. About 10 of us for the last couple of months have been going to unaffiliated voters. Those are people who are not registered in either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. And the ones who been going to houses where they have voted in the last few midterm elections. Because what we're trying to find out is, where are these unaffiliated voters? There are so many of them here in Knox County. And, you know, what are they thinking? And, you know, a few of us in this room are part of that group who've been doing that. So if you're, I hate to put Pat on the spot, but if you're interested in joining us, either if you could talk to me or to Pat afterwards, and because we need help.
So, yeah, if you're interested in getting involved, just see me after the meeting. We'll take down your information and keep it going.
Everybody heard that? See Pat after the meeting.
Sorry, Kathy, I'm going to interrupt you real quick.
I'm Kathy Tate. I'm chair of the Democratic Party. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, it was my fault. Totally my fault. I jumped up way late. I just thought of something that I think should be said. I mentioned earlier that I used to go to Republican meetings, right? And things have changed drastically. They've always had really bad policies, turns out. But a lot of people don't know that, even within that system. We have to tell stories. And I think that that's the best way to communicate with people, is to tell them about ourselves, to humanize ourselves and each other is the best way to communicate, because it's easy in a very isolated world where loneliness is a pandemic. It is endemic. We live in a world where the most interaction we get is on a Facebook post, and that's disgusting. But in the moments where what we do matters most is when we interact with other people and we tell them who we are. We've spent a lot of time as a party, as a people, as individuals, letting other people tell our stories for us. And they can twist it any way they want. They can call us radicals. They can call us far-left extremists. They can call us socialists, which, by the way, buying 10% of Intel. Just be a human is the best advice that I can give. And don't forget that they're a human too, because that goes both ways. It's easy to have some anonymous, faceless being on the other side of a comment section, but you also have an opportunity to change your life. And as much as sometimes I just want to scream into the void, it's not how we fix things. Just remember that if you're lonely, there are many people out there feeling that same way. And we have opportunities to change lives.
Okay. I'm Kathy Tate. I'm chair of the Democratic Party here in Knox County. I want to thank these candidates and former candidates because they have stood up. Do you remember last year's primary where so many people actually voted Republican because they wanted to vote for somebody because we didn't have candidates? These gentlemen have brought up courage. We need more people to be courageous and stand up and run for offices. Every time I meet someone, I ask them, would you please, if you are out there saying things and standing up and voicing your opinion, would you please consider running for office? I don't know what else I can do to try and get people interested. If it's talking about courage or whatever. If you gentlemen have any information, any comments, any ideas on how we can get more people involved, we need to have more candidates. If even it's only to put your name on a ballot and not actually be running, at least we would be able to have a primary for the Democratic Party or for any other party, Green, Independent, whatever. We need to have more people out there actually standing up. If you have any ideas, please let us know.
This is a tough one, right? Because there are some races that the pundits and the horse race experts will tell you are unwinnable. And I guess it forces a conversation about what is winning, what is valuable. And when in 2017 I had a similar epiphany after the election of the current president the first time, realizing I wasn't going to just stand by. Because I began to think of the decisions I was making not as decisions in the moment, but as decisions I would evaluate 30 years later, or that my kids would judge me for 30 years later. I think that's a good lens for a lot of our decisions in this moment. What are our kids going to think of what we did in this moment of crisis? There's that saying, if you ever wondered how you would have behaved in 1930s Germany, you're doing it now, right? And so when it comes to the question about running for office in really tough places, reframe it. There is nobility, there is value, there is virtue in the fight itself. Because you need to signal that we have some fight in us, right? It catches on. When the first yard sign goes up, you feel really alone if that's your yard. But try it. You'll see another one, and then another one, and you'll realize you're not that alone. The other thing that running can do, if you run a good campaign, if you bring good people into it, if you have amazing volunteers, which Knox County has, is you build a team. You build that muscle memory. You build that sense of community. Look, we lost in 2018, and it was gut-wrenching, and I wish we had won. But that team went on to run with Stacey Abrams. That team went on to lead the With Honor Foundation. We built something incredible that spread that magic, that love for democracy, literally around the country. And I would like to think we began to build something in this area as well, something that grew. Reframe the question. Why are you running? Sometimes it is a straight uphill climb, but there is value in the fight. You know, my first phone call the morning after the election, the first time of Donald Trump, was to a buddy of mine, known him a long time, Seth Moulton, Marine congressman in Massachusetts. And I said, do you think this race is winnable? And he said, you're asking the wrong question. Is it the right thing to do? And I think if you can put that question to your neighbors who are thinking about it, I think the answer will sometimes be yes, and we need more of that yes.
You know, I think that Ken kind of hit the nail right on the head there. You know, it's why are you running? How do you feel? Right? Like, how do you feel in your stomach when you look at the world today? And could your perspective and could your drive really do something? And I think an issue that we have with people not running for office, really, because a lot of Americans feel as though they are a little powerless, right? If we look at legislation, I believe this came out in a documentary, I think a few years ago, but it was, if a bill has 100% support from the people, what are the chances of it passing? It's 33%. Now, if that same bill has 0 support from the people, what are the chances of it passing? 33%. It's a little funny. But it makes me understand as to why people, whenever they say, oh, my vote doesn't count, right? It kind of gives a little bit of validity to that if you think about it. But I think that it also makes me think of a story that I heard when I was a child. It's a story called About the Lion and the Mouse. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that one or not. But essentially, the story, the lesson of the story is no matter how small the person, they have value. Everyone has value. And collectively, we have big value. And I think that if we are able to talk to other candidates, talk to people who feel the same passion, the same fire, and when you talk to someone, you can see it in their eyes. Those are the people that we need to focus on and say, hey, I would like for you to represent me. Because we need people who understand our problems. We need people who are going to stand up and legislate for our constituents, not for their own wallets. And I think that that is probably the most important thing that we can do, is look for candidates who are actually in the same positions as us. You see, I am not by any means wealthy. I am a product manager for an insurance company. I don't make a ton of money. I know. Oh my gosh. At least it's not health insurance. I can at least say that. Oh man. But yeah, so I don't make a lot of money. But you know, I'm up here, I'm running a grassroots campaign. You know, we are on a tightrope of a budget here. And I recognize that is nothing compared to Troy Balderson or any of the other candidates, or even Thaddeus Cletus, who I'm running against. But it doesn't matter, because the passion and drive is there. Because my constituents will know that whenever I represent them, that is who I'm representing, not some corporation and not some party. I am representing my constituents. And I think that we can. I think that we can motivate people across the state to run. Because I believe it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the last election, we had like 79% or something like that of the incumbents run unopposed. It's unacceptable in my mind. That is not democracy. So here is also another point that we have to kind of make perfectly clear, is that if we want our democracy to thrive, then our people have to start participating. They have to start voting. They have to get out. They have to start spreading the word. They have to motivate others. They have to ask the question, what is wrong and what can I do to fix it? And I think that is probably at least the best chance I got at motivating others. So, thank you.
Is there anybody else who wants to make a statement or ask a question? Just come up to the microphone. We have a little bit more time.
Hi, this is to piggyback kind of off this last question. When you approach people about running for things, like the first thing that ever would come to my mind is, I don't want them digging up my past. And we on the left, we always have a purity test. And if people don't line up perfectly, we turn our backs on them. So this is, I guess, a question to not only the candidates and the people who run these organizations, but to us. What are we doing to be more welcoming to people to run, people who don't have a perfect past, especially when we have a convicted felon in the White House? I don't think you guys really care. Like, I feel like someone could bring up your past and you'd be like, yeah, and. But I think that's a real problem on the left, and we still see it today. So what can we do to move past that? Because a lot of people stayed home not because they wanted Trump to be president. They might have stayed home because they didn't like what's happening in Gaza and they didn't want to vote for someone in the past administration. They didn't like this, they didn't like that. And what are we doing to move past that purity testing and saying the high road is no longer there? We have to get in the mud and we have to fight the same fight that they're doing. The rules have changed, and what are we doing about that?
No matter what they dig up on me, I'm not in the Epstein files. So I'm already winning. And I would never protect someone in there. I was just in Licking County the other day, and they have a Bill Clinton poster up, and I was like, hey, if he's in the files, you're gonna take that down, right? Yeah, they're no heroes. The answer to that is I don't know how to make people change their minds. If I could, we'd live in a whole different world. But the best thing I can do is to get out in the world and just be authentically myself. With all my flaws, all my cuss words, all the things that I say and do wrong. I'm publicly pro-2A. It's on my website. Look it up. I share all of my thoughts and feelings about everything. If you don't like it, that's okay. The thing is that we have to stop seeing each other as enemies. I heard a saying a long time ago that's really hard to picture being true, but it feels right, is that it's impossible for good men to have enemies. But some people are just bad. Right? And they're not going to like you no matter who you are, no matter what you do. And I can't go for the appease all, please none. It doesn't work. If you agree with me, if you align with me in enough ways on enough things, then I would hope that I would earn your vote. And if I can't, that feels a lot less like a me problem. I mean, ultimately it's a me problem because I have to deal with the consequences of, that dude being in the office. I wasn't talking to you about you, Mason. Yeah, I don't know. The internet is a very angry place, and I think that's one of the, we were talking about the pandemic of loneliness earlier. People get their information from the most extreme sources because that's who lives on the internet most of the time, right? You can twist and turn anybody's perspectives and opinions into anything you want it to look like. All we have to do is keep getting out there and make our voices heard in a way that can't be ignored. I think that that's ultimately the answer, is just be yourself all the time and be loud about it. I don't I don't have a better answer than that. Just show people who you are, and hopefully that's enough.
I just kind of wanted to piggyback off Jerrad there for a second. So with the purity tests and all that, I fully recognize the conundrum that this causes. I think something that we can do ourselves is recognize when we're starting to do that. Because the thing is, I may align with someone 90% of the way. And then the rest of that 10%, they're like, oh, nope, you're out of here. Right? Can't do that anymore. We don't have the numbers to do that. Okay? So we need to be open-minded and say, okay, well, yeah, maybe this person, I'm very pro-gun, somebody is not pro-gun, right? I'm not going to distance myself from that person or tell them that they're not allowed to hang out or whatever, right? Because they have a differing view on guns than I do. Because these are all conversations that can be had to be helped to build a better society. Because, like I was talking about before, everybody has value. And so we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So what we should do is we should in turn say, okay, you know what? They may not align perfectly with the way that I think, but I think it's still worth a conversation to have. And I can kind of put that out because just show of hands, how many of you guys have a coworker who you don't necessarily align with? Right. So we've all experienced this. Why do we treat our personal lives any different? So if someone isn't aligned with us 100%, that's fine. That's not a problem. They're still 90% on my side, So that's kind of my take on that.
Thank you. I'll make this quick because I think we're running out of time. But I want to thank all of you for your courage. And for the good people that put this town hall on. It's excellent. The thing that keeps me up at night, in addition to climate, is this part of the big ugly bill, the $170 billion, and I mentioned it earlier, for ICE, $170 billion put into a secret police force. Now, we can all see this happening. This guy that's the current occupier of the Oval Office is insulating himself. And he's creating this secret police, masked people, to pick up innocent victims and make examples. And, a lot of what's being done, you mentioned, these are trial balloons. They put them out there. They put handcuffs or knock Senator Padilla down on the ground and handcuff him. And, then people get used to that. So my question is, now that we have this big ugly bill, and we have $170 billion put into a mass group of thugs, is what I call them. What can we do? And you guys are all military veterans. We have the greatest respect in the world for you. And I know in the military, and then these guys are they're paramilitary. But in the military, if someone gives you an order, you follow it. And what's scary is that this paramilitary now, this guy can use this as, well, he gave us orders, and the people that are joining that getting $50,000 bonuses to join masked ICE. What can we do now? Do you have any answer to that? Thank you.
Yeah, it's scary times. A budget bigger than the United States Marine Corps. A budget bigger than almost any other militaries in the world is now being funneled into a secretive paramilitary organization to intimidate American citizens. It's not making any of us safer at all. And as I said before, it's going to be repurposed and redeployed as the president sees fit. Because it used to be that one of the safeguards, one of the guardrails was, I think this is a Madisonian observation, democracy ultimately depends on the virtue of men, right? Men and women. The idea being that you would have people in positions of power subordinate to the chief executive who would check the authoritarian impulse. We had that during Trump 1, right? We came very close in Washington, D.C., actually, to having the 82nd Airborne fix bayonets, but for one man in uniform saying, I'm not going to let that happen on my watch. It would have happened last time. Thank you, Mark Milley, whose photograph, by the way, has been ripped off the walls at the Pentagon by a childish Secretary of Defense for totally, and a drunk, I didn't say it, you said it. That safeguard is no longer there. Do you think Kristi Noem is going to weigh the constitutional pros and cons before Donald Trump says we need you to use ICE in this way? All right, so that's the bad news. The good news relates back to the masks. The good news is they are ashamed of what they're doing. They know it's wrong. They know history and their own families will judge them incredibly harshly. I am looking for more Democrats to run on an accountability agenda, because the Trump regime's days will end. And there will be truth and reconciliation, whatever form it takes, but we need to start sending the signal now that we are watching, that we are documenting, that we will not forget what is happening on our own streets to Americans and non-Americans alike. Due process is a right afforded everyone. Get your phones out, document when these abuses happen. Databases are being set up. I assure you, you'll hear about them soon, where we can share this documentation. The reason places like South Africa and even post-World War II Germany were able to transition is because they dealt with their past. They dealt with the abuses. They tried to confront head-on the illegality of their former regimes. That is coming, but we need Democrats to stand up and say, in addition to the kitchen table issues and climate change and these sorts of things, we need to hold the criminals in our own government accountable, and that needs to be a plank in every Democrat's platform.
I just want to make this very, very quick. So when it comes to things that we can do about the ICE tactics and all of that stuff, I mean, we have a Secretary of Defense who can't do a pull-up, and we have a Department of, and one push-up apparently, and we have a Department of Homeland Security director who thinks that habeas corpus is the president's right to deport somebody. So I wouldn't say that we have the brightest at the helm here, but the problem with that is that oftentimes these people are subject to making very terrible mistakes. And I think that a way that the public, that we can do this is we look at, there's different apps that kind of show ICE's position. And that's something that we should become very familiar with. After we're done here, we'll have a little bit of information for you if you do want some of those applications. That way we can tell our immigrant neighbors, hey, I would not go down that street today, right? Or, you know, another idea that I had would be that we have our, you know, immigrants in the community paired up with an American who is, you know, appreciative of them being here. And when ICE comes through the town, simply have the immigrant go to the American's house, wait for them to leave before they go home. Right, so these little Anne Frank type strategies, which unfortunately is where we're at today because we have people at the helm who don't care about the law, essentially. So that's what I got for how to combat the ICE tactics.
Wow, we've just about reached the end, and I want to thank you all for coming, and it's just been so wonderful to be in this room with so many people, being able to talk about these things. Since we ran this town hall on a budget of nothing, we have a lot of people we have to thank who really helped us out. All the volunteers who helped set up, will clean up afterwards, loaned us equipment, loaned us space and everything. So I want to thank Meg Gallipold, who is our fearless leader in Knox County Indivisible. Hold your applause till the end. I have a long list. She who shall not be named, but who is our event planner, I have to thank. Ellen Tibbs and Stu Peckham, who ran our YouTube feed. Claudia Esslinger, who is our videographer. Skip Trask, who lent us all of the sound equipment. Our speakers, Ken Harbaugh, who's running away. All the volunteers who set up tables and chairs and checking folks in and cleaning up after. We need to thank Habitat for Humanity for allowing us to use this space for nothing. The Knox County Democratic Party for lending us chairs so you could sit on them. I want to thank our speakers. I already thanked Ken, Jerrad Christian, who's making his second appearance in Knox County, Mason Blankenship. And I just want to say what a joy it was to work with Janet Byrne-Smith on this. We've had so much fun. It's been such a labor of love. And I thank her for all her work as well. Thank you, everyone. Please, on your way out, if you can, try to give a little bit to those people who are disadvantaged in this county, who will be disadvantaged by cuts to SNAP and Medicaid, and donate to the Little Pantry. Debbie Fierce is back there collecting. If you live in Mount Vernon, you might want to stop by and talk to Dale Miller, who's running for the at-large seat in the City Council. We have a photo booth set up, so if you want a selfie with your absent congressman, you can do that and post it on social network. And finally, thank you all for coming. You've been a fabulous audience. Please put your pink slips and your postcards in the boxes in the back so that we can deliver them to Troy Balderson later. And also, a final thank you to the Dancing Bee who gave us soap for the bathrooms. And I remind you, Indivisible is sponsoring a Craftivism fundraiser for Little Pantry. We've collected a lot of craft things. They'll take donations through next week at Dancing Bee just off the square on Main Street. The fundraiser for Little Pantry will be here in this space on September 6th from 9 to 1. Yes, and so thank you all for coming. This was a really great, I feel really good about this.
Thank you.